In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This week on Simulcast 230, what the hell number are we on? Is it 238 or 239? I don't know.
I think it's 238.
Why did I write 239? I'm such an idiot. Hey, it's Bill Stebbins. You're listening to Simulcast 238. I don't know what we're doing this week, Patrick. What a mess. Oh my God. Hold on, I'm going to restart that.
It's like your audio cut out for a second on your lips moving, but heard nothing.
Great. It's going to be one of those weeks, people.
Technical difficulties should be the name of the show.
What the hell just happened? Let me look and see what show we're on anyway while we're live.
According to the notes, it's 238.
Okay. But last week,
That's what
last week was 238.
Oh, but we didn't meet.
What?
But we didn't have a show last week.
The 16th was the last one, and it was 238.
Was it?
Yeah. I'll fix it. Yeah, I never did update the number, I guess. My bad. Fire the producer. Fire him. All right, let's do this again, and I will not screw it up this time.
Yeah, it was 238 last time.
All right, in
Call
3, 2, 1. This week on Simulcast 239, we're talking about Apple MacBook refreshes, Nexus 9s, Shamu, and what the hell is Sprint trying to do to net neutrality? We'll talk about it all right here on the Simulcast. It is Wednesday, July 30th. I'm Bill Stebbins, and you are listening to Simulcast 239. If you weren't watching us live, then you won't get the inside joke that we are actually on 239 and not 238. Patrick gets it because he was there.
I'm experiencing deja vu. Did you do an intro?
Yeah, second intro. Hey, when I first started doing the podcast, I used to screw up every intro, so that was a throwback Wednesday.
Well, that's just your version of Chevy Chase falling off a ladder.
Yeah, pretty much. I pretty much just crashed and burned. That was pretty awful. My apologies, people. So we had to skip last week. We both had a bunch going on, and you know what? We do this for fun. We hope you enjoy the show when we do it. But we're back this week, and we've got quite a bit of stuff to go through. As you may know, Patrick, Apple is getting ready to introduce a new iPhone, and it's going to have a big screen. Never before seen big screen.
Or at least that's what they're telling us.
Right.
We've heard this before, haven't we?
I mean, I may have heard, but, you know, those plastic phones with big screens are no good.
I still like the Samsung commercial. Oh, we already have that. Haven't you been waiting on that for like the last 3 iPhones?
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
That and their wall hugger commercial.
Oh, yeah, I like that one, too. Samsung really, they dig at people, and it's pretty damn funny.
They have a really good marketing firm that they use.
Yeah.
People should find out who they use and use them.
So Apple is supposedly, and we don't really know yet. I mean, the rumor is that they're going to have 2 phones, but we don't know if they're going to actually have 2 available this year. I think I know some people who are going to lose their stuff if they don't get a 5.5-inch iPhone.
Well, from everything that's been kind of coming back now, they might as well get ready to lose it because it looks like a 4.7. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, honestly, the 4.7-inch screen would be an improvement in size, but we had that with the Galaxy Nexus like 3 years ago.
And the S3, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're an Apple fan, a bigger screen is a big deal if you really want it, as long as you're not one of the hypocrites that said that the large screen phone was worthless and couldn't be used one-handed and you'd never use a phone that big because it looks ridiculous when you hold it up to your head.
Well, they might be slightly older now with worse eyesight, so now it actually means something to them.
Yeah, or maybe they just
don't staring at a 3.5-inch screen.
Yeah, maybe they just don't have ridiculous requirements anymore. I don't know, but It'd be interesting.
Apple, so it's good.
Yeah. But it would be. I mean, having an iPhone with a big screen, especially for media consumption, would be great. And gaming, and I mean, since they've introduced the iPhone, they've only increased the screen size by half an inch.
Yeah, and it was basically one row.
Yeah, I mean that's not even a tenth of an inch per year. That's not much growth.
You have to figure they've been losing a lot of the male demographic just because you get guys tend to have bigger hands and you want something that you can actually type on instead of trying to peck with the freaking stylus because the screen's too small.
I realize that I'm not the iPhone demographic, but I've got a lot of friends who swore by iPhones, and one by one they're all going to pretty much Galaxy phones because of the screen size, and the other features that are in there. And I mean, I know Apple's still making money hand over fist, so good on them. But at some point, they've kind of got to look and say, what is it that our current customers are saying they want? And but Apple's never really been about giving you what you want. They give you what they think you want.
Yeah, they want to basically. We tell you what you want what you need that you didn't know you wanted.
Right, and they've been quite a bit good on stuff where, even like with the MacBooks when they got rid of the the floppy drive went on their desktops, then the DVD drive went on their laptops, and everybody thought they were crazy. I mean, they've got a lot of good ideas with stuff like that. But they're just
they usually give you options. It's not like they tell you, here's your one size MacBook, that's it. At least they have 13 and 15. I mean, they did take away the 17.
Well, they've got 11-inch too. I mean,
yeah, with the Air. So I mean, they should kind of take a cue from that. I mean, even if they could sit there and you wouldn't even have to release both iPhones at the same time. Do every 6 months. Do like certain size ones, and then they'd be relevant twice a year instead of once.
Right. I mean, that would make sense, and I know several people that would probably go back to an iPhone if they could get their hands on a bigger one.
That's what she said.
That's right. There's a Retina MacBook Pro refresh, and Yosemite is going to be coming out in the next few months. Did you install the beta at all?
No.
I started to back up my system, and then I was like, I don't really. Mine works fine. I don't really want to mess with the beta on my primary laptop. I just need it to work.
Yeah, this is my not just primary, but only personal computer. So I was like, nah.
Yeah,
I'll
good
wait.
call.
But I mean, we kind of were expecting this to come up with school every fall. They always do a refresh. This one they refreshed all the Retina MacBook Pros. So basically, the 13-inch base model didn't get an upgrade. And basically what they did was all the other ones now doubled the basic RAM. So the bottom line MacBook Retina 13 Pro now has 8 gigs, and the 15 has 16 gigs of RAM now. And then they had small processor upgrades.
I mean, that thing's got to scream. I mean, I'm running a 2011 MacBook Air, and when we've got the full load of the podcast and the recording and the video streaming and all that going on, it's taxing it pretty hard. It's a Core i5, but it's only got 4 gigs of RAM, and I mean, it doesn't slow down when I'm using it in normal everyday use. I've been very impressed and happy with it.
Yeah, I can only imagine what 16 gigs would do, considering the one I've got, it's the Retina, is the 2012, the second iteration of the Retina 13-inch. It's upgraded. It's the dual core i7 one, but it's got 8 gigs of RAM. So I mean, it usually doesn't even stutter at all with max load on it.
Yeah, my wife and kids. Well, my wife and my one daughter, they both have hand-me-down MacBook Pros, and I think they both have 8 gigs of RAM. But I can see a difference in them. They slow down pretty good. Of course, they haven't been reinstalled or anything in forever. But, man, once you get an SSD in them or flash memory and, a good amount of RAM, they move pretty darn good. And I was kind of excited when they were talking about possibly a Retina MacBook Air.
See, I would what I would like to see is a quad-core Air, especially if you can get like 11-inch. So I could have The 13-inch, I like the Pro I have, but I wouldn't mind sometimes having a slightly smaller one just to carry around. But I'd like to see the 13-inch get bumped up for the Pro line to a quad core, because it seems like most things nowadays it may not stutter, but having those extra cores is really nice.
That's very true. Well, we'll have to.
Although I guess some people have said they're kind of worried though. What does this mean that Apple and their refresh is doubling up the RAM on all these computers right before Yosemite comes out? What does this mean for people with older computers?
That's true. That could be very interesting for some people.
Could be a deal breaker for upgrading.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to some Google stuff. OnePlus One. Did I have this last time?
I think you were going to talk about it because you were waiting. You hadn't got it in yet.
Okay, yeah, I only got it in Saturday a week ago, so I've had it about 10 days. Man, this thing just goes. I mean, it's let's see, it's been off the charger 13 and a half hours, a couple hours of screen time, and I've got 40% battery. That's pretty good. I've been getting generally about 16 hours with about 5 hours of screen time. So
not bad at all.
Yeah, it's a fantastic phone, man. You know, I still am not a fan of the invite system, and for those wondering, I don't have any invites. They still have not sent any to me to share. If you can get past the invite part, okay, this is a 64 gigabyte phone. The specs are top shelf. 3 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of storage, 5.5-inch screen, 3100 milliamp hour battery, running Cyanogen mod. I mean, it's just a fantastic phone. I think it's got a Snapdragon. I think it's an 805. Doesn't slow down, doesn't stutter, doesn't. I mean, you know how much I like this phone, Patrick?
You sold your Nexus 5?
I sold my Nexus 5 for this thing. And quite honestly, I sold my Nexus 5 and was able to get enough money out of that to pay for the whole phone. So
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I doubled the storage because the Nexus I sold was 32 gig. So if they can get their invite system worked out, then if you can deal with a bigger phone, and I'll tell you, I was worried about that at first, but after about 2 days of using it, the nice thing is, and I don't know if this shows up very well on camera, but it's tapered at the edges.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't feel like real thick. I think it's only 4 millimeters at the edge, if you can see that kind of ridge there.
Kind of like the HTC One.
Yep. But the back is sandstone. It feels like, I've been telling everybody, it feels like velvet sandpaper. I don't know how else to describe it. But it's not as grippy as the Nexus 5, but it's still very grippy, and it just, this is probably cliche at this point, but it feels really good in the hand. So I've not charged this thing but once every day since I got it, even with heavy use. So as much as I hate that it doesn't have wireless charging, it hasn't been a huge barrier for me at this point.
So how many inches is the screen on that thing?
5.5. Let me turn it on. You can see. So it's got some decent sized bezels. I won't lie.
I mean, those don't look that. Those don't look like major.
No, they're not. I mean, it's a very beautiful looking phone, and I really like because it's got hardware keys on it that are they're soft touch electronic keys or whatever. But you can hit a button and actually turn them off, which is a super nice feature.
So that would put that about the size of the Note 2, right?
Yeah, and I tweeted some comparison pics when I first got it.
Mm-hmm.
It's slightly taller than the Note 2,
but not quite as wide.
It is about the same width. It's a little thinner, and it feels like a completely different. I mean, it really does feel like a premium device. So if you have the opportunity to buy one, and you've always wanted a bigger Nexus phone with a much better camera and much better battery life, then spend the money. You won't be disappointed.
Nice.
If you can get past all the crap marketing and the invite system and all that stuff, for me, this is right now the phone to have.
Sounds to me like they just need to get their stock in order so they can just get rid of the invite system totally.
Yeah, from what I understand, they're making these phones after the orders are placed. So when you get an invite and you order a phone, it's not even made yet. But I got mine within a week. I'm sorry, did you? What?
I just said custom made to order.
Well, pretty much, yeah. I mean, when I ordered mine on a Monday morning, I got it that following Saturday. So within the same week. But, you know, if they get that part figured out, they've got a really nice product. And it's funny because, not funny, like, haha, but, you know, I wasn't a fan of the invite system. I still am not, and I feel bad for people that want an invite and can't get it. But seeing how much hatred people have towards the device and the company, it's kind of how I was, and I didn't really care until I got the invite, and then I got it, and then I'm like, man, I wish they could get one to get their hands on it, because then they would understand, you know, how nice of a device it is and how good in the hand it feels and how nice it is to use.
For some people, that's just their defense mechanism. They
That
can't
too.
have what they want, so.
Yeah, I can't have it, so I don't want it, kind of thing, and that's how I am. But hopefully they'll get the invite thing figured out. I was kind of keeping up on the invites as far as if you registered for their forum, they've been sending out invites in order of when you registered, and I'm like 120,000, I think is my number. And last I checked, they were like at 65,000. So I've still got a ways to go to get an invite there. But when you buy one, you're supposed to get several invites to be able to share with friends and family or whatever. That hasn't quite happened yet.
Now serving nowhere near you.
Yep. So I want to give a huge shout out to Arthur Bartlett. He's Bartlett's4 on Twitter. He had some invites, and he was kind enough to share them with some people who listen to the show. And so I think, let's see, Ryan is getting one, Clay is getting one, and Brian is getting one. So
Nice.
they should all have theirs this week. And I'm going to be on the Tech Talk podcast next Monday. I don't remember what day that is. I'll tell you in a sec.
4th?
August the 4th, yeah. They're recording that live at 9:30, I think. 9:30 Eastern, I believe. So I'm going to be on there, and we're probably going to be talking a lot about the OnePlus One if you're interested in that.
Cute.
So, if you have any questions about the OnePlus One other than can I have an invite, shoot us an email, podcast@simulcast.com, and we'll talk about it. If you want to hit us up on the Twitter, definitely can answer your questions, you know, off cycle from the podcast. It doesn't have to wait till next week. So another, I guess it's a Chinese company, is Xiaomi. Xiaomi. They have a 5-inch phone with LTE and an 801 Snapdragon for $299, Patrick. That seems like a pretty good deal, but I don't think they're doing anything here in the States yet.
Probably not. Although you can probably find ones out there. Of course, they were also this is like a major company in China. They're the ones that came up with the Misc, the cheap ripoff of the Prezi.
You know, mine still hasn't come. The one that I ordered from China for like $2, it still hasn't gotten here.
What? Maybe Customs has seized it.
I don't know. I think it was supposed to take like 20, 30 days to get here, so whatever.
Where'd you order it from?
AliExpress, maybe?
I was about to say, because I know some of the ones, the shipping, I lucked out. I ordered some headphones. They came, the faster shipping, it was eligible for it, so it's like 5 to 10 days.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I only paid $2 with shipping, so I'm not expecting a whole lot.
No.
but it'll be interesting.
I'm curious to see what you when you get it. I got one of my coworkers. He orders from AliExpress all the time. Like he gets cufflinks, ties, all kind of stuff, and so he had ordered some. So I'm curious to see what kind of quality they are.
Cool. All right. So there was an ad last week. It was a Google ad for something. And right there looks to be the Nexus 9 that we've kind of been talking about, that weird 4:3 aspect ratio screen Nexus 9 tablet. Does that interest you at all?
Yes, I'm ready for an update.
I am too.
I've
I'm at that
started to
point.
get the point where certain things like lag, I could probably clear it up by doing a complete refresh. But I figure if I'm going to do a complete one, I'd rather do it with a new device.
Yeah, and I'm at the point where, now I've got a bigger phone again, and I don't. It's still smaller than my tablet, but I'd kind of like to have that separation again.
Yeah.
So if I'm using the tablet, it's because I need a big screen, not a, inch and a half screen. Screen that's bigger. So.
And I wouldn't mind having the like a 9 or even a new Nexus 10, just something, especially when you're hanging around the house and stuff like that. Because I got the Note 3, so it really is very small of a difference between that and the Nexus 7.
Yep. So we'll keep an eye on that. I mean, generally we see those later on this year.
Well, usually, like within the Nexus 7 update, we already had it by this point.
Yeah, and I don't know if I can't remember when the Nexus 10 came out, but I think it was a little bit later on.
It was that year. It was a late fall because they did it for the Christmas season.
Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of think maybe the 9 will fall in that range, but who knows, man.
So is this supposed to be the Project Valantis one?
Yeah, the HTC made one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which would be interesting because if they do it with like the boom sound where you have the front speakers, that would be really good on a tablet.
Yes. And premium feel and blah blah blah.
Hopefully it still has wireless charging.
Yep. It will be interesting. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. NVIDIA, was this last week they announced the new Shield tablet with controller?
Thereabouts. I mean, we've heard some things before this, but yeah, there was some recent news in about a week, 2 weeks, last 2 weeks.
Yeah, so it looks compelling, but not compelling enough to, like, why would you pick this over, say, a regular tablet and a controller? I don't know.
Especially considering all the deals that are being put out there right now for the 2013 Nexus 7.
Right. I mean, God, you can pick up a 16 gig Nexus 7 refurb, the 2013 model, for like $129.
Yeah.
That's just silly, crazy.
And I mean, from what I remember, the 32 gigs weren't that much more. They were right around the $200 range.
Yep. I'm going to be waiting on the LTE model of whatever comes out, but I don't know, the Shield doesn't do a whole lot for me. I think it's really a cool concept, but it's kind of weird because they've got to have, some of the games have to be made specifically for the Shield.
Yeah.
Have to be, but they do.
Because the NVIDIA chip, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, I used to have a Samsung tablet with an NVIDIA chip, and it was a Tegra 2, I think. And so they had this whole store where you could go and get games specifically for that. And it was just awkward, like trying to find stuff. And I just want to be able to play a game. I don't want to have to worry about if I've got this processor or that whatever.
I think, didn't the original Asus Transformer, I think it had the Tegra 2 in it.
I think it was just a Tegra, maybe, because I had one at one point.
I know it was Tegra. I just couldn't remember if it was Tegra 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think it was Tegra 1, and then the Tegra 2 was the, what did I get?
Yeah, the
Galaxy Tab 10.1.
Yeah, and I think Asus came out with their one. It was like the Transformer Prime or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know anybody that even has one to try it out, but it looks like kind of neat, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I could see someone dedicated for that, but I mean, I've seen some really good Android-based things out of China that look like a little PSP that can play all those games, and it's a lot more portable.
Right.
Because, like you said, if you want the whole form factor of a tablet and a controller, you can just get a controller and pair it with a tablet. It was like the Moga, I think, was one of the ones that came out with the thing where it'll hold your tablet, and then it has a controller built into the whole thing that holds it.
Sweet. Oh, and sorry guys, I should have looked at the chat. We had a couple comments when I was talking about the OnePlus. B Hutch from Twitter, he's Rotorhead in our chat room. He really liked his OnePlus, but it was a little too fragile for him based on his job. But he got $440 for his on eBay, which still isn't a huge premium over what they cost. I mean, they're $360 shipped. So that's pretty, that's a good deal. He didn't rip anybody's head off on the price, but
and he didn't end up losing on it. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's good. I mean, still $440 for a 64 gig phone of this caliber is. Hell, I sold my Note 3 used for $600. So, sweet. And then, speaking of big phones, Project Shamu is rumored to be a 5.9-inch Nexus phone made by Motorola for Google.
Not sure about the 5.9 part, but I wouldn't mind seeing something with Motorola and Google. Just because Motorola has come up with some really good innovative stuff for their actual individual phones, and it would be a great way to kind of see that kind of get pulled over into the Nexus.
Yeah, I'm looking at this thing trying to figure out if you could fit a 5.9-inch screen into the same size chassis, because this is about as big as I would want to use. I mean, I'm 6'3", I have fairly large hands, so I don't know that a 5.9-inch screen is going to be, I don't know. I've used the Galaxy Mega. My 94-year-old grandmother has one, and that's just too damn big to carry around. She doesn't carry it around, but...
Well, one way you could probably get away with it is moving the speaker grill. You could probably integrate it in, because you see some devices where it's integrated like into the screen part. If you think about your notification at the top, you could have that part of it that's in the very dead center be the dead spot for the speaker, especially now with the pop-up notification options, as well as with the drop-down with L. You could come up with ways to do that and just keep real estate while integrating those other parts that normally require a bezel to be above and top of the screen. You could do that, and you could even incorporate the camera underneath that part there too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, part of this rumor makes me wonder if they aren't not coming out with a Nexus 7 3rd gen because this is going to kind of be their hybrid device.
Of course, what I want to know is, well, one thing that for the most part, most Motorola's seem I never really hear that they have terrible battery life, so that could be a good thing for people with Nexuses to have one that actually doesn't just die prematurely.
Yep.
I mean, that's the big thing for me. Sure, you make a bigger screen, all that stuff, but if you don't increase the battery size, not only have you not helped the problem, you've made it worse because it has a bigger screen that it has to power on a small battery.
That's a very good point. And I'm really hoping at some point the battery life just isn't an issue. It's weird. When I had that battery case on my Nexus 5 and I didn't have to worry about battery life, it was so enjoyable to just use,
Mm-hmm. Well, the good thing is we had talked about this about 3-4 years ago when Stanford, they came out with that they were working on technology to improve battery life, that it could essentially increase just take a normal battery that they have now, just change the manufacture process of it and make it last 10 times as long. Well, we've been starting to see a lot of stories coming out in the last couple of weeks where they're coming back out of that they seem to be getting closer and closer to potentially marketing this to manufacturers to use in their actual batteries, which would be good for us because then you would basically keep the same size battery, but it would suddenly have 10 times the capacity.
Which would be then a non-issue. I mean,
Yeah.
that whole argument would be out the window, and people could just use their damn phones without.
Yeah.
And I'd be okay even if I could charge my device in like 10 or 15 minutes.
Which is, I think, the big thing with USB 3, especially if we get they adopt the new standard for micro, which is, was it C, I think is the one they're using for it. It basically looks kind of like the lightning plug for Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the biggest knock to the current version of micro is that it tends to tear up your port a lot. That's one thing where I like wireless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every time I'm plugging my phone in, I'm just like, this is kind of antiquated, but I only have to do it once a day, so it's okay.
Although I will say with the updated plug of the USB 3 version for the Note 3, it works much better because it's not just a small little plug it doesn't put as much strain on it because of the double plug, and I mean it charges super fast.
True. Yeah, I picked up a bunch of BlackBerry chargers off of eBay for like, I don't know, 3 of them for $5 or something, and they charged my OnePlus from almost dead in an hour.
Nice.
Yep. All right, we'll move on to some gaming news. EA Access is bringing an evolving list of EA games to Xbox One for $5 a month or $30 a year.
That's their way by evolving. Basically, what they're saying is, it's worth your $5 a month because even though we only have like 4 or 5 games right now, I mean it's interesting in theory because essentially the EA, because they have such a big catalog of games, it essentially be like a form of Netflix but for gaming. And what's interesting in the way they're kind of selling it to you too is it's a lot cheaper if you just pay the upfront for the year because it's only $30 versus $5 a month. But you'll have all these games, which for the most part, it looks like mostly the previous year's versions of games, like Battlefield 4 and everything like that. But you're also going to get discounts for the next coming, by being an EA Access member, you get discounts to buy the newer copies of the games. So that kind of helps offset it too. And so, I mean, it's the biggest thing is going to be how well they roll it out, but I could see this having potential to be a really good thing.
Yep.
So, I mean, $30 a year, and you can basically just wait a year to play some of this stuff and do it for free. It's worth it.
I wonder if we'll ever get to the point where we are now with music, with gaming, where you can just pay, all access, $15 a month and be able to play whatever catalog.
Well, that's kind of what this is, but it's only EA's catalog. But it would be nice to see somebody be able to kind of work out more like a true Netflix model where they're able to coordinate with several gaming companies to have a large, really large thing. Especially with Nintendo, if they keep losing money, they could be a great portfolio to incorporate into this, to have like an arcade style thing with the old Sega and Nintendo games. And hell, I'd pay $30 a year to be able to play any of those old NES, Super Nintendo, 64, and old Sega stuff.
Yeah, me too. Hell, I'd pay $30 a month just to get some time to do that. Anybody want to come do some of my stuff for me? Let me play some games. Sony, this is kind of funny. Sony's brought 3D Blu-ray support to the PS4. And that's funny because I don't have a PS4, but I've been watching 3D Blu-ray rips on my Xbox One and my PS3 for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the PS3 had it from day one, which was the big argument why people were kind of mad about Xbox and PS4, the Xbox One and the PS4, because they didn't have it come on launch. But, I mean, it took Sony longer than what you thought it would have been, since this is kind of their they are part of the Blu-ray group. I mean, they're part of the reason why Blu-ray won out.
Yeah.
This long.
It's very odd.
Although in their defense, though, they have taken a very limited focus on non-gaming for the PS4. They've tried to basically do what the 360 was originally and just try to do mostly just games. Whereas the Xbox One went where 360 was trying to go to, and what the PS3 started off being is more of a one console to rule all your home entertainment.
We'll see, people. Nintendo had a loss last quarter, even though they tripled their Wii U sales.
They just need to pull a Sega and manage their portfolio of games, and then maybe make some games, and then just start licensing them out to Xbox, PS, to Sony, and to iOS and Android. Just make games and manage your licensing of all your games like Zelda and all those things. Stop making hardware. There's no reason to do that. They can make tons more money if they didn't try to do that.
It's really weird. I'll hear somebody say, I'm thinking about buying a Wii U, and I'm like, they still make Wii U's.
But in most cases, the reason why you hear them do that is because they want the games that they can only play on that. Usually it's Mario Kart or Zelda. Those are the two things. Or the Super Smash Brothers. Because a lot of people went through college or high school playing that, and so they want it.
I don't know.
I mean, I could still understand maybe keeping their market for like the 3DS and everything, because those still pretty much sell. But the console, it's like they're kind of doing what Sega did initially, and not wanting to recognize you've lost. No one buys you anymore, but you can still profit as a company. Just reshift your focus. I mean, hell, with the licensing they have their games, they can make a ton of money too, licensing movies, cartoons, you name it. Because I mean, they own most of the licenses, several old games, because they happened because they were the biggest game out there for the NES. They have a lot of franchises that they own or have control of.
So interesting to me. Miscellaneous news, Patrick. T-Mobile's family plan now has 10 gigabytes, 4 lines, $100 a month.
Get it now before Sprint buys them out and screws you over.
I was mad at T-Mobile tonight. I got my bill from them. I'm on the Simple Choice plan, which is $70 a month, the one I have with unlimited. Of course, they tack on whatever fees and stuff, so it's $77.50 is what my monthly bill is for T-Mobile. That's what it was last month. This month it's 77. Hold on, I'll tell you. 77.88. And so, and on there's a line that says change from last month, and there's a dash. And I'm like, what do you mean there's a dash? It's different. I mean, in that, I'm OCD, so it bugs me. But the Universal Service Fund went up. Oh, okay. I mean, it wasn't that big of a change, but the fact that they've got a dash there that like no, it didn't change from last month. I'm like, I know how much it was last month because it was an even number last month. It was $77.50. Right in the middle of 77 and 78. So then I tweeted at them and they gave me some link to explain the Universal Service Fund fee thing, which
I understand it. You're telling me it didn't change, and it did.
But it didn't really actually even make any sense because each of my lines on Verizon, I'm paying 99 cents for a Universal Service Fund fee. So where does that money go? Does anybody know? I mean, is that something set by the carriers? Because they indicated that it was set by the federal government.
It's partially set by the carrier because the idea is it's supposed to help offset the cost for them to upgrade their systems to provide for deaf and other services like that.
Huh?
It's supposed to help them upgrade their stuff.
I heard you.
Yeah.
Huh?
I figured maybe it cut out again.
Huh?
What?
Well, so if you can deal with T-Mobile service, and if you have good service and you want to switch your family over, that's a pretty good deal. That's not going to be available forever. It's a limited time thing, but damn, $100 a month for 10 gigabytes, 4 lines.
At least we're getting closer to not being completely screwed over for data prices.
Yeah, it would be cheaper for me to move the rest of my family off Verizon and still have an extra line. Whatever.
I think this would be even more enticing if they continue to increase their size of their network.
And I hope they do, because pretty much all over Louisville now, T-Mobile is much better service than Verizon. And if they can get that in more places, when I go other places, it's not quite as good.
I think the big thing is if they end up merging with Sprint, that'll help at least if you go travel out towards the west. It was like when you go into San Antonio and stuff, because Sprint has a much bigger focus out that way, basically because being out of Kansas, and so basically all that way is mostly their network. Now, I have a feeling that merge one would probably lose a lot of their negotiated things where they use Verizon as their backups for 3G. Of course, at some point that'll just go away completely, because it seems like Verizon's intending to eventually totally ditch their 3G market and upgrade everybody to LTE and advanced LTE plus, so they can do voice.
That whole Sprint T-Mobile merger makes me really nervous. That's one of the reasons I'm keeping my Verizon line, among other things that I didn't put it in the show notes, and neither did you. We should slap ourselves.
Oh, the one about Verizon?
Verizon has sent out a thing about they are going to start throttling unlimited LTE users in places where their towers are in distress or under heavy loads.
If you basically in the top 5%, which they say is like 4.7 gigs, which I call BS on, because I see that some of these people that have unlimited brag about using. But what's funny is they talk about to ease their stress, but it's if you pay for unlimited and use 5 gigs, you're considered a hog using it, but you could be a person who pays for 10 gigs and uses all 10 gigs of it, and you have just as much, if not more, of a detriment to the system. The only difference is you're grandfathered in. They offered you unlimited. It's not your fault that they chose to give it to you.
And the interesting thing tonight was that the FCC chairman has kind of perked up his ears at this and wants to know more about this, because he's concerned about the methodology they're using to determine who to throttle.
Yep.
And it's kind of interesting because he didn't seem to really care when AT&T was doing it. AT&T throttles their unlimited users after 5 gigabytes. So I don't know. I mean, it's all going to just end up being evil.
Well, I think one of the reasons they probably perked up with Verizon, though, is most of Verizon's main LTE block, which is because they're applying this to 4G now, their block has specific restrictions against some of this stuff. So it'll be interesting to see. The only limitations, if it's stuff that actually impairs the network, is the only time they're supposed to do it. So part of this thing is that methodology, because if they just say, well, you're using a lot of data, so that's impairing it, that's probably not going to fly for them. It's going to have to actually show that the whole system doesn't have enough bandwidth and that you're legitimately doing it because it's overloaded. Like you're at a sporting event, you're at NASCAR, you're at a football game, and too many people in one tower. And so at that point, they're like, screw you, you've used a lot. We're going to let some of these other people get in the front of the line.
Or it's even this person's paying us more money, so that's essentially what it is.
Yeah. Well, and the other question is, they said, well, it's only when you're at this tower. But the other issue that's been kind of raised and people complain to the FCC about is what's to keep them from just saying every one of their towers is overwhelmed, so therefore you're throttled everywhere just like AT&T for the rest of that month. And their problem is it's not just the rest of that month, it's and them pay after that.
I could see if it was just during the peak period, but if they're now saying, for the whole month and then the next month, that's just a tactic to get rid of somebody.
Yep.
All that is.
It's exactly what it is.
And that seems to be very shady, and I really hope the FCC goes after them, because that's bull.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even consider myself a heavy data user, and I use, I think, on average about 8 to 9 gigs, but that's because I pay for not just unlimited, but I pay for unlimited Wi-Fi hotspot too. So obviously I'm going to be using more than just 4.7 gigs.
Right.
And I mean, I pay $60 for that. So of course I also looked out, because it only applies if you're completed the minimum terms of your contract. And since I just renewed mine last year with the glitched for the Note 3, I should be good for at least 6 months, if not the full year.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. It's getting crazy with all this stuff, and somebody's got to step up and watch out for us.
I mean, my thing is, I wouldn't mind if I lost unlimited, if it meant that the FCC is going to finally crack down on these U.S. carriers and make them actually stop gouging for the cost of data. There's no reason to pay as much as you have to pay for tiered data.
Yeah, I agree. Man-made biological leaf can convert light and water into oxygen.
Yeah, so, I saw this. This is actually really cool. This is like to me, it's like one of the first steps towards what we need to be able to do if we're actually going to like travel other places in space. Mm-hmm. But it was pretty cool that they actually were able to take biological parts from inside cells of plants and manufacture an artificial leaf that actually takes light and water and produces and actually exports out oxygen. But what's cool about this is because the man-made leaf is actually more hardy, it can actually survive being like out in space and then trips to like Mars and things like that. So it's kind of cool what we're kind of being able to do, kind of like a step up from 3D printers.
That is really cool. You could take these down on like a submarine or something.
Yeah. Just have some artificial light and give them some water, and it puts out oxygen.
Yeah. An oxygen generator. Mm-hmm. Interesting. If you're an Amazon Prime member and you decide you don't need Prime shipment right away, you can opt to get a video credit in exchange for slower shipping. And I started to see this earlier this week when I bought something.
Yeah, I saw it this morning when I was using it.
I was like, no, I want it.
There's a reason why I looked for the Prime version.
That's right.
I mean, it's like $1 credit. I guess they could add up, but...
Yeah, I'll take the faster shipping, thanks.
Yeah. I guess you could go start buying your gifts for people that have birthdays like the month ahead of time. Ship it to them and you game it to get free credits for videos.
Yep. And then, as I talked about at the beginning of the show, Sprint and Virgin Mobile Prepaid giving the middle finger to net neutrality because, Patrick, why?
Essentially what they're doing is they're creating exactly what people were afraid we're going to do. Your basic one, you have access to, you can get one of 4 major networks like Facebook, Google+, things like that. Then if you want to access other ones or more than just one and have it not count towards your data cap, you have to pay extra money. So they're basically creating tiered data for what services are considered not included. We had talked about this with the AT&T one and things with like with T-Mobile with Spotify. That was one extra thing where Spotify was basically paying cost to T-Mobile to get them as a kind of promotional type thing to offer it without counting towards your cap. What this is doing is essentially saying we want to limit how much things are this, kind of like with your cable company. If you want HBO and you want premium stuff, if you want access to these things where essentially you don't have to count your pot of data, you have to pay extra. And so, but we're going to automatically give you one of these free. And how they're coming up with those ones that they're using is kind of got people going, this is kind of what we didn't want, where you're giving favoritism to certain companies, and in order to use and have choice of who you want to use, you have to pay extra. You shouldn't have to pay extra for how you use your data and get better service and less potential throttling for one or the other. And so it's just kind of got people kind of going, See, this is exactly what we said. Why you need good net neutrality rules.
I mean, this is a lot like the way the cable company does. Oh, you want Facebook? Oh, well, you've got to be on the sports and lifestyle pack for another $20 a month.
Yep.
Oh, you want this? Well, you've got to have this package, and it comes with 50 other channels you don't want.
Yep. All in Spanish.
Yeah. That's a slippery slope, and I mean, A, if you're on Sprint, I'm sorry for you, but two, run from this. Do not do this.
Well, not only that, if you're on Sprint and you're using prepaid, I'm really sorry for you. Just use the regular Sprint, which is just unlimited.
Yeah.
But oof.
All right, people, follow us. Google Plus. We are at google.com/plus the Simulcast. I always screw that one up. We are at the Simulcast on Twitter. You can email us podcast@thesimulcast.com, or you can call us and leave us a voicemail at 203-903-CAST. And Casting Couch. It's been kind of a slow week for me the last couple weeks. Been fairly busy. But if you follow me on Twitter, you probably know I'm really into cars. Lots of my favorite car shows have started back up. Street Outlaws was on. It's about some, I won't call them street racers. I think I've picked this once, or I said this once before, but they make it like they're street racing. They're not really street racing because they shut the road down and they have camera crews and lights and whatnot. But it's still an interesting show and got some cool cars. Another show I've been watching is Overhauling. If you know who Chip Foose is, you know what kind of work he does, and they take a car from somebody that's in need of overhauling or fixing up, and they do them up. And last night I watched, they did a 356 Porsche. Man, it was awesome. They always do some really cool stuff. And then there's a show called Ultimate Factories, and they go inside all kinds. They went inside the Bacardi factory, the Frito-Lay. They'll go inside some of the car factories. You can see how the Corvette's made. Really cool show. I think it's on History Channel. If you have the bundle for $20 with the 50 other channels in Spanish that you don't need, you can probably watch that. What about you, Patrick?
Based on a recommendation from one of my coworkers, I started watching Hell on Wheels, which I've actually kind of gotten where I'm really liking it. So I'm gonna try to binge watch the rest of the first season this weekend. Started watching. I finally got to watch Spider-Man 2. Thank you to Showbox. Sat there, finally watched it, and then this weekend I plan on going either Friday night or go Saturday during the day to go watch Guardians of the Galaxy, because I'm totally ready to get Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Sweet. Spider-Man 2 is pretty good. We watched that. Do you like Hell on Wheels?
It's been pretty good so far. I figure get a few more episodes in to kind of really get an idea, but so far it's been pretty cool.
You know, Sons of Anarchy starts back in like 6 weeks for the last season, and I just can't wait. I'm so pumped for that show.
I think the only episode I've ever seen of that show is the one where I can't remember the lady's name, the one that played Peggy Bundy, where she's basically telling the guy's wife that to leave, that if he finds you, because she was planning to leave with the kids.
Oh yeah.
That was just like such a good speech.
Yeah. Yeah, if you get a chance, you should binge watch that when the whole thing's over. It's I like motorcycles some. I'm not like into the motorcycle gang stuff. I just am fascinated by the whole story on that show.
I have to give it a shot.
Yeah. Then moving on to picks of the week. My pick this week is a really cool side scroller for Android. It's also on iOS. It's called Leo's Fortune. And you're this fluffy little ball thing, and you're trying to retrieve your gold, and it's kind of a side scroller puzzle game. So I think it was I don't know, $4, $3, $5. But so far I've been playing it for a couple of weeks, just off and on, and beautiful game, got a really cool story to it. It's well worth checking out. The graphics are amazing on it. What about you, Patrick?
I haven't really done a lot, so I figured it's one I've done before, but it came in handy this past weekend was the screencasting with Chromecast. Just the ability to kind of use a lot of these movie apps that, for one reason or another, they don't have Chromecast support, and there's really no other way to kind of watch it instead of using the stupid on-demand stuff through my cable company, which usually has it where you can't fast forward through commercials and things like that. It's nice to be able to just pop it up on the screen and not have to worry about, oh, it's not supported. Oh, it doesn't matter. Put the whole screen up there, put it up there, and I can watch whatever's in any of those movie apps, regardless of whether they actually support Chromecasting or not, which is nice.
Yeah, I love that. I had to install an app to make mine work on the OnePlus, but there is an app that'll let you enable that if it's not enabled by default. I've been using the heck out of that as well.
And what's nice too is kind of what you were talking about earlier about the all access like for music with Chromecast to celebrate their 1 year anniversary. They have basically kind of like what they did with the Netflix thing. You can get 90 days of all access for free for the play music, but it doesn't apply if you're already a subscriber. And like me and you are both locked into the lower rates because we were grandfathered in.
Yep, that's awesome.
But I mean, it's still pretty cool that they're kind of putting that out there for people to test it out.
Yeah. All right, Patrick, tell everybody where they can find you when we're not on the podcast.
You can find me on Twitter, handle LSU Law 2009. You can find me on Google+. Probably the easiest way, just plus.technicallylegal.net. And you can email me at patrick@thesimulcast.com.
And I am Bill Stebbins, at Bill Stebbins on Twitter, google.com/plus Bill Stebbins for everything else on my social media stuff. That's going to do it for Simulcast 239. It is Wednesday, July the 30th. We're almost into August already. We should be back next week if all goes well. Hit us up on the social media if you have any questions, comments, or you just want to tell us what a great job we're doing. Awesome. Otherwise, we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for listening.
Later, guys.
Good night.